The gruesome case of the Girl Scout murders. A group of Girl Scouts landed at Camp Scott for what they thought would be a weekend of pure fun. This area was close to Locust Grove, Oklahoma. However, on the first night of the expedition, outside of their tent, 3 Girl Scouts were killed and subjected to sexual abuse. On June 13, 1977, 8-year-old Lori Lee Farmer, 9-year-old Michelle Guza, and 10-year-old Denise Milner were raped and killed. Jean Leroy Hart, a local jail escapee who has been characterized by authorities as a textbook serial rapist, was detained and put on trial in connection with the crime but was found not guilty in 1979. 2 months later, while incarcerated for a different offense, he passed away. This case, which remains maybe the state's most scandalous case, and was the subject of a 4-part series on Hulu called Guardian of the Cinders, the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, that was delivered recently. In an effort to identify the culprit, the movie explores the case of the 1977 Oklahoma Girl Scout killings. It also follows a new study of DNA evidence from the crime scene. Kristin is now speaking up about her involvement in the long-running case. To reconnect with her origins in Oklahoma, Kristin Chenoweth is taking a sabbatical from the Broadway stage. The 53-year-old actress is the anchor of the ABC News true crime documentary series Keeper of the Ashes, The Oklahoma Girl Scout Murders, which has debuted on Hulu. Except for the fact that, had she not been ill, Kristin Chenoweth may have spent that summer at Camp Scout with the 3 Oklahoma Girl Scouts who were murdered on June 13, 1977, Lori Lee Farmer, 8, Michelle Heather Guza, 9, and Denise Milner, 10. The 53-year-old actress Kristin Chenoweth discussed how she avoided being a victim of the 1977 Girl Scout murder and what she is doing to remember the victims. Chenoweth described how she was scheduled to be at the camp when 3 young Girl Scouts were raped and killed in the trailer for Keeper of the Ashes, the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. Stated by Chenoweth, "It bothers me every day. This is a story I wish I never had to share. However, this tale must be shared." Chenoweth recalled, "I could have been one of them, but I remember I should have been on that trip, but I was sick, and Mom told her not to go." Chenoweth further stated, "I've carried it with me my entire life. I might have ended up like them." However, the actress does her damnedest to make herself the focus of Keeper of the Ashes, a 4-part Hulu docu-series that frequently inserts its star into a narrative that doesn't really include her. The appearance of Chenoweth is awkward to the point of being tasteless, and it significantly undermines this true crime production. This true crime production is further undermined by a persistent effort to stretch its material to the breaking point. The well-known Broadway star visited her native Oklahoma 45 years later in an effort to close the case and get some answers. When she thought of the 3 girls, Chenoweth replied, "I wonder what's the best way to honor them. I would return home in order to finally uncover the answers," she said. "I've carried it with me my entire life. I might have ended up like them." While staying at Camp Scott with the Girl Scouts on. Numerous conspiracy theories emerged while the case went unsolved, but the grieving families of the 3 murdered elementary school kids demanded truthful answers and justice. The upcoming ABC News docu-series, Keeper of the Ashes, which was scheduled to be released on Hulu May 25, chronicles the most current developments in the unsolved case. Interviews with Hart's attorney, a camp counselor, Sheriff Mike Reed, the victims' families, and others are included in the 4-part documentary. Farmer's parents got in touch with Reed, who can recall being a youngster during the time of the murders in his hometown, 9 years ago. The tenacious parents requested that the sheriff review the case in an effort to identify the real murderer using new technologies, such as DNA evidence. "It's shocking, I wouldn't wish that adventure on anyone. It is distinct from a death." Farmer's mother, Sherry, told KOTV, "It's different than a loss because our daughter was murdered. The police arrived on the scene shortly and were met with a horror display unlike anything they had ever seen. Both where they were discovered and inside their blood-stained hut, the three girls had suffered severe abuse. Even worse, there wasn't much solid information leading investigators down a useful path. Female camp counselors were ruled out as suspects, as were close neighbors, and it was challenging to find the flashlight the offender left behind because its bulb was hidden by a garbage bag that had been taped on except for a pinprick-sized hole. According to Keeper of the Ashes, Hart, a Native American who belonged to the Cherokee Nation, had been on the run for years as a result of his second jailbreak at the time of this triple killing. In the past, Hart had been found guilty of kidnapping two women, raping them repeatedly while they were tied to a tree in the forest, and then abandoning them there. Additionally, his successful avoidance of the law had been Sheriff Weaver's constant enemy. Following the deaths of Lori, Denise, and Michelle, Hart evaded capture for 10 months despite a manhunt involving over 600 police officers and citizens, developing a legend that he was some sort of shape-shifting supernatural monster. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations, OSBI, investigator Harvey Pratt went undercover and obtained a clue on the fugitive's whereabouts, a remote cabin where he was shortly apprehended. However, whatever powers or luck he may have had ran out. Due to both the media's ferocious coverage of the incident and the way it divided the community between those who believed Hart was guilty and the many, both Native American and Caucasian, who had known him since his young days as a high school football star and vehemently believed in his innocence, the prosecution however did not. Keeper of the Ashes does a good job of addressing these circumstances. A discrepancy that, even today, appears to perplex Lori Farmer's mother, Sherry, is how pro-Hart Oklahomans reconciled their defense of the man with his demonstrated track record as a horrific sexual predator. Unfortunately, this issue is never fully explored. The community contributed $30,000 to retest the evidence after the local police reported the case to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. The four-part series, which is narrated by Tony Award winner Kristin Chenoweth, examines the horrible rape and murder of Girl Scouts Lori Lee Farmer, 8, Michelle Heather Guza, 9, and Doris Denise Milner, 10, on June 13, 1977, at Camp Scott in Mays County, Oklahoma. Jean Leroy Hart, a convicted rapist and prison escapee, was the major suspect the Mays County Police had at the time of the deaths. A member of the camp staff discovered Farmer, Milner, and Guza's bodies inside sleeping bags on a trail leading to the camp showers on June 13, 1977, at Camp Scott in Mays County. This staff member describes her discovery in the Hulu documentary Keeper of the Ashes, the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. Jean Leroy Hart is still the primary suspect in the deaths 3 decades later. Hart was a local resident and a Cherokee Nation member. He has a history of sexual assault against women and had broken out of jail in 1973. When he managed to flee, he had been convicted of 4 counts of first-degree burglary, including kidnapping, and raping 2 pregnant women. The Mays County Sheriff's Office finally revealed the findings after years of speculation, and all the evidence and investigations pointed to Hart. Reed told KOTV, "There is absolutely no question in the world that Jean Hart is the individual who did these crimes." The best parts of Keeper of the Ashes are when it focuses on the specifics of its central murder mystery or thoughtfully addresses the unimaginable trauma endured by the victims' loved ones. Although Michelle's family is absent, the parents of Lori and Denise powerfully express the depths of their loss and their anger at the public's overwhelming support for the suspected killer. However, too frequently, filmmaker Weber uses cliched techniques to create tension, such as overdone music, cheesy insert shots, and leading going to commercial cliffhangers, or wastes time on pointless subplots. A tempting idea that never yields the kind of bombshell the series seeks is the new Sheriff Mike Reed's attempt to use fresh DNA research to get a firm conclusion about Hart's culpability. None of those errors, however, compared to Chenoweth's personal involvement. The renowned actress waxes lyrical about her upbringing in Oklahoma, declares repeatedly that she's never been able to forget this notorious crime, and the thought that it might have been her, and, in a diversion with no relation to this true crime story, visits the neighborhood Kristin Chenoweth Theater to meet with adoring students. "I'd prefer not to ever have to tell this story," she says at one point, "but this tale, it needs to be told, and it begs the question, why does Chenoweth think she's the one to tell it?" Chenoweth gives the impression that she is an outsider in someone else's story, whether she is strolling through the abandoned Camp Scout grounds or kneeling next to the tree where the girls were discovered. By the time she finishes the final episode with a 5-minute on-stage duet with a little fan, it is obvious that she believes herself to be the star of this tragedy. 10 months after the killings, on April 6, 1978, he was taken into custody. He was staying at the home of a Cherokee medicine man in Cherokee County's Cookson Hills, 50 miles from Camp Scott, where the girls' bodies had been discovered. The medicine man was not aware of Hart's suspected role in the deaths, as was evident in Hulu's Keeper of the Ashes. He did, be that as it may, use whatever remains of his life in jail on charges of seizing, assaulting 2 pregnant ladies, and first-degree burglary. He had 305 years of his 308-year sentence left to serve following the preliminary. To the inconvenience of the Oklahoma Girl Scouts case, Hart passed away on June 4, 1979, at the age of 35 years old from cardiovascular failure. From that point forward, the killings of Doris Denise Milner and Michelle Heather Guza have remained formally strange, notwithstanding various bits of proof that appeared to highlight Hart as the executioner. Hart was accused of the murders, but a jury absolved him in March 1979 and declared him not guilty. While we have come to the end of this video, this was such a tragedy. How could they let this monster get off for this terrible crime he committed against 3 wonderful little girls who were totally innocents and only wanted to go camping? This was an injustice to say the least. What happened to these 3 children? Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that you'll get more information whenever another video is posted.